We are going to continue with GUI Part 1 and look into JPanels and also the components. Using panels as containers. Panels act as smaller containers for grouping user interface components. It is recommended that you place the user interface components in panels and place the panels in a frame. You can also place panels in a panel. To add a component to JFrame, you actually add it to the content pane of a JFrame. To add a component to a panel, you add it directly to the panel using the add method. Creating a JPanel. Let's look at this example. So we have our container cPane equal to getContentPane. So we have our content pane on our JFrame at this point. Then we create a panel. JPanelPan equal to new JPanel. So if we have a button, we can add that button into our JPanel. So we would write pan.add new JButton, and then we want to call our button as click. Then we would add our panel in the container by writing cPane.add_pan. To make this easier to understand, so we have our button, we add our button to our JPanel, we have our JPanel, we add that to our container, which is our content pane, and then content pane is within our JFrame. This figure is showing what I have said earlier. So you have to add the components to your JPanel and then add your JPanel onto the content pane, and your content pane is within the frame. Let's look at this figure. See that we have 3 panels. So the top panel, it has 2 components that are label and text field. And these 2 components are arranged by using the flow layout. In the middle panel, it has 1 component, which is a text area. It is arranged using grid layout. And then in the bottom panel, it has 2 components that are buttons. These 2 components are arranged by using the flow layout. All these panels are arranged with border layout. The top panel is set to be at the north, middle panel would be at the center, and the bottom panel would be at south. We will look at the code in the next slide. Let's look at this code. So let's see, the first one we have super using panels in JFrame. So that would be at the title bar. And then we have our container equal to getContentPane. And then now we are setting our content pane to be a border layout. In the previous slides, we said that we are going to have 3 panels. The first panel, we call it as panel top. So we add the panel to our container, and because our container is using the border router and we want to set our panel top to be at the north region. Now we want to add a label and a text field onto our panel. So we would write JLabel, and we call it as label equal to new JLabel, and we want it to display name. So for the text field, we would write JTextField, and we call it as text field equal to new JTextField, and the width is 20 pixels. For panel top, we want to set the layout to new flow layout. By using this no argument constructor, we are setting it to center. Then we would add our label and text field onto our panel top. We would write paneltop.add_label and paneltop.add_textfield. Now we want to have our second panel, where we call it as panel mid. We would write JPanel panel mid equal to new JPanel. We then add our panel mid to our content pane by writing contentPane.add_panel_mid, and then because our container we are using border layout, so we set our panel to center. In the panel, we want to add a text area. So we would write JTextArea and we call it text area equal to new JTextArea. For panel mid, we want to set the layout to grid layout. So we would write panelMid.setLayout new grid layout. Grid layout is used because it will fill the whole part of the center. Next, we will add our text area onto our panel mid by writing panelMid.addTextArea. The last panel, we call it as panel bottom. So the same way as before, we would write jpanel panel bottom equal to new jpanel. And then we add our panel bottom to our content pane by writing container.add panel bottom, and because our container is using border layout, we want to set our panel bottom to be at the south region. So that's why we write border layout.south. We want to have two buttons. So we have J button, button 1 equal to new J button, and we want it to display send. The second button, we call it button 2, and we want it to display cancel. In panel bottom, we want the layout to be flow layout. Then we add our buttons to our panel bottom by writing panelBottom.add button 1 and panelBottom.add button 2. If we don't write this add, then our buttons will not appear on our panel. Try and run this code and you will get the output as shown in this screenshot, where you have your panels being added to your container and then your container is within the JFrame. Make sure to set the visible to true and also to set the default close operation to jFrame.exit on close, so that when you close the frame, it will exit. Currently, if you click on the send or cancel button, it does not do anything. We will learn about it in GUI part 2. To recap what we have been doing previously, so these are the steps in creating the panels. So we set the layout manager for the container, which is the frame, and then we create the panel. We then set the layout for the panel, and then we add the panel to the container, and then we create the component to be added to that panel, and then we add the component in the panel. Now we will look into some of the components. GUI classes for handling text. The swing GUI classes JLabel, JTextField, and JTextArea deal with text. A JLabel object displays uneditable text or image. A JTextField object allows the user to enter a single line of text. A JTextArea object allows the user to enter multiple lines of text. It can also be used for displaying multiple lines of uneditable text. JLabel. We use a JLabel object to display a label. A label can be a text or an image. When creating an image label, we pass image icon object instead of a string. To add a text to our label, we can write it as JLabel and we call it text label equal to new JLabel, and whatever we want to be displayed, we would write it. For example, over here, please enter your name. And then we add our text label onto our content pane by writing contentPane.add text label. If we want our JLabel to display an image, we would write it as JLabel image label equal to new JLabel, new image icon, and the image that we want to use. Same as before, now we would add our label onto our content pane by writing contentPane.add image label. The image that we want to use, it can be of other types, for example, GIF or JPEG. Say that you want to use an image icon. So on NetBeans, that image needs to be within the folder. For example, over here, I have my project called GUI 4. So my image would be within that folder. If I save my image somewhere else, then in my new image icon, I need to write the full directory of it so that the code can find where the image is being saved at. JTextField. We use a JTextField object to accept a single line of text from the user. An action event is generated when the user presses the Enter key. The getText method of JTextField is used to retrieve the text that the user have entered. The way to write it, we would write JTextField and whatever we want to call it, for example, input equal to new JTextField. And then we will add our text field onto our content pane by writing contentPane.addInput. See that this is the complete code. So we have our container content pane equal to frame.getContentPane. The next line, we are setting the layout to flow layout. If we don't have that line, our label and also the text field will be on top of each other. So make sure that you remember to set the layout. We have a JLabel that is called text label, and it will display please enter your name. And then we have our JTextField, and then we add that onto our content pane. So if we run this, the screenshot is what will appear. You can see that the text field is that tiny white box. To ensure that we have some space in our text field, we can write it as JTextField input equal to new JTextField 10. So this number 10, it refers to how many columns we want our JTextField to have. If we run this code, it will show you the output as shown. If we want to display a specific text inside our text field, we can do it by writing equal new JTextField. For example, over here, I wrote sample text. So when you run it, it will display sample text on the text field. Another way to do it, if say that we have JTextField input equal to new JTextField, we can set the text by using the setText method. So we can write it as input.setText. For example, over here, I wrote sample text. If you run it, you will get the same output as what we did in the second code. On this slide, it shows where you can combine your JLabel with a text, your JLabel with an image. Using the image icon, you can have your JTextField, and you can also add two buttons. Over here, you have also set the title bar of your frame. JTextArea, we use a JTextArea object to display or allow the user to enter multiple lines of text. In JTextField, only a single line of text. The setText method assigns the text to a JTextArea, replacing the current content. The append method appends the text to the current text. For example, in this code, we have JTextArea TextArea equal to new JTextArea. We want to set the text to hello, so we would write TextArea.setTextHello. Then, we want to add more text to the current text, so we would use the method append. So we can write TextArea.append the loss. And then we want to add more text, we would write TextArea.append world. So if we run this code, the output would be hello, the lost world. If you want the lost and world to be in two rows, then you have to write /n at the end of the loss. What happens if we only use the setText method? So this is the same example, but I changed to TextArea.setTextHello, TextArea.setTextTheLoss, and TextArea.setTextWorld. If you run this code, only world will be displayed because each time the setText method is called, it replaces the current content with the new one. If you look at JTextArea API, you can see that there are several constructors available. Say that you want the user to enter something, then maybe you can use the constructor where you define how many rows and how many columns you want it to have. For example, JTextArea TextArea equal to new JTextArea 10 rows and 10 columns. So when you run the code, it will show you something similar as the screenshot. On this slide, it shows using your JTextArea to have 6 words. You can use the setText and append methods to display the words, or you can ask the user to enter the words. On your online learning, I have provided another example in a file called GUI4.java. So in that example, I have used different panels and I have added image icon, labels, text field, text area, and buttons. Try and run the code and see if you get the same output as being shown in the screenshot.